Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Peter Mercer stood at the dining room table, adjusting the placement of a wine glass for the third time. The crystal caught the light from the chandelier above, throwing tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. Everything had to be perfect, not because he cared about impressing anyone anymore, but because precision mattered when you were executing a plan that he was 39 years old. And until 3 weeks ago, he believed his marriage was solid. Not perfect. What marriage was, but real. Built on 7 years of shared meals, shared bills, shared silence on Sunday mornings over coffee. Ashley had her moods, her need for attention, but Peter had always figured that was just who she was. High maintenance, his friends joked. He'd shrug it off. Then he picked up her phone by mistake. His was charging in the bedroom. Hers was on the kitchen counter, and the screen lit up with a message. He glanced at it without thinking, the way you glance at any notification. Except this one had a name he recognized. Logan Blake, that can't wait to see you tonight. Same place? Peter had stared at those words for a full 10 seconds before his brain caught up. Logan Blake, Ashley's ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she'd dated before Peter, the one she claimed she'd lost touch with years ago. The one she'd mentioned exactly twice in their entire marriage, both times in passing, both times with an eye roll about how immature he'd been back then. He'd unlocked her phone. She'd never hidden the passcode from him. Their anniversary, backward. Inside, he'd found months of messages. Flirty at first, then explicit. Plans to meet at hotels. Compliments about her body, her smile, how much Logan had missed her. And Ashley's responses, eager and breathless. Nothing like the way she talked to Peter anymore. Peter had put the phone down carefully, like it might explode. Then he'd walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the tub for 20 minutes, breathing slowly through his nose. He didn't cry, hadn't punched the wall. He just sat there, feeling the weight of it settle into his chest like a stone. That night, Ashley had come home late, claimed she'd been at a gallery event. He'd smiled, asked how it went, poured her a glass of wine. She'd kissed his cheek and said he was sweet. He'd said nothing. Over the next 2 weeks, Peter had gathered evidence. He'd taken screenshots when she left her phone unattended. He'd followed her once, watched her meet Logan at a hotel off Interstate 40. He'd even hired a private investigator, just to be thorough. The PI had delivered a manila envelope stuffed with photos, timestamps, receipts. Everything Peter needed to bury her in divorce court. But Peter wasn't interested in divorce court. Not yet. He wanted something else first. He wanted them to see. Now, on Christmas Eve, he placed the last fork beside the last plate and stepped back to admire his work. 8-place settings. Roast turkey in the oven, potatoes simmering on the stove, apple pie cooling on the counter. Ashley had invited a few friends, 2 couples from the neighborhood, people Peter barely knew but tolerated. And then there was Logan. Ashley had mentioned it casually 3 days ago while folding laundry. Hey, so I ran into Logan at the coffee shop. You remember, my ex? Anyway, he's in town for the holidays, and I thought it might be nice to invite him to a dinner. Just to be friendly. Water under the bridge and all that. Peter had looked up from his laptop, kept his face neutral. Sure, why not? She'd blinked, surprised. Really? You don't mind? Of course not, Peter had said. Everyone deserves a seat at the table. Ashley had smiled, relieved, and gone back to folding towels. Peter had returned to his laptop, where he'd been drafting an email to Chloe Martinez, Logan's fiancée. Finding Chloe had been easy. Logan's social media was public, full of photos of the two of them together, hiking, at weddings, holding hands at some beach in Florida. The engagement ring was visible in half the pictures, a fat diamond on her left hand. She looked happy. Peter had felt a flicker of guilt when he'd sent her the message, introducing himself, explaining that he was hosting a Christmas dinner and thought she might like to join. He'd mentioned Logan would be there. He'd kept it friendly, casual, the kind of invitation you'd send to an acquaintance. Chloe had replied within an hour. That's so kind of you. Logan didn't mention he'd been invited, but I'd love to come. What can I bring? Peter had told her to bring nothing, just herself. Now he stood in the dining room, listening to the sound of Ashley upstairs, the hum of her hairdryer, the faint spray of perfume. She'd been nervous all day, rearranging the living room, fussing over the decorations. She wanted tonight to be perfect. Peter had watched her flutter around the house, her energy frantic, and he'd known why. She was excited. Logan was coming. Peter walked into the kitchen and checked his phone. Chloe had texted 10 minutes ago. Just parked. Be there Ina SEC. Perfect. The doorbell rang. Peter wiped his hands on a dish towel and moved to answer it. Ashley's voice floated down from upstairs. Can you get that? I'm almost ready. Peter opened the door. The first couple stood on the porch, Dan and Linda from 3 houses down. Dan held a bottle of red wine. Linda clutched a container of cookies. They smiled brightly, wished him Merry Christmas, stepped inside with a blast of cold December air. Peter hung their coats, made small talk, poured wine. The second couple arrived 5 minutes later. Mike and Jennifer, friends of Ashley's from her gallery job. More coats, more wine, more small talk. Ashley came downstairs in a red dress. Her hair perfect, makeup flawless. She kissed Peter on the cheek, greeted the guests warmly, laughed too loud at Dan's joke about traffic. Peter watched her. This woman he'd loved, this woman he'd thought he'd known. She was performing. Every gesture calculated, every smile a little too wide. She kept glancing at the door. The doorbell rang again. Ashley's head snapped toward the sound. I'll get it, she said quickly, moving past Peter before he could respond. She opened the door, and there he was. Logan Blake, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and the kind of grin that probably charmed a lot of people. He wore a leather jacket over a button-down shirt, jeans that looked expensive. He carried a bottle of wine and a bakery box. Logan, Ashley's voice pitched higher, bright and false. You made it. Wouldn't miss it, Logan said, stepping inside. He handed her the wine, leaned in to kiss her cheek. It lasted a second too long. You look amazing. Ashley blushed. Oh, stop. Come in, come in. Everyone, this is Logan, an old friend from college. Logan shook hands with the other guests, made easy conversation, accepted a glass of wine from Peter. He looked comfortable, confident. He met Peter's eyes briefly, offered a firm handshake. Thanks for having me, man. Ashley said you were cool with it. Of course. Peter said evenly. The more the merrier. Logan grinned, clapped Peter on the shoulder, and moved into the living room. Ashley followed him like Amagnet. Peter stood by the door, watching them, feeling the cold edge of satisfaction creep into his chest. Not yet. Wait. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang a third time. Peter opened it. Chloe stood on the porch, bundled in a coat, her dark hair pulled back, a hesitant smile on her face. She held a bottle of wine and a small gift bag. Hi, she said. I'm Chloe. Thank you so much for inviting me. Peter smiled warmly, genuine for the first time all night. Chloe, come in. I'm so glad you could make it. He took her coat, led her into the living room. The other guests looked up, curious. Ashley glanced over from where she stood next to Logan, her smile still in place, but her eyes narrowing slightly. Everyone, Peter said, this is Chloe. She's... Logan's face went white. Chloe. Chloe froze, her gaze locking onto Logan. Confusion flashed across her face, then recognition, then something harder. Logan, what are you doing here? Logan's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Peter, then at Ashley, then back at Chloe. What are you doing here? Chloe turned to Peter, her brow furrowed. Wait, you're Peter? Ashley's husband. Peter nodded. That's right. The room had gone completely silent. Dan and Linda exchanged confused glances. Mike and Jennifer looked between Logan and Chloe, trying to piece together what was happening. Ashley's smile had vanished. She looked at Peter, her face pale. Chloe's voice was tight, controlled. Logan, you didn't tell me you were invited to dinner tonight. Logan stammered. I didn't know you were coming. Peter invited me. I thought I invited you both, Peter said calmly. He moved to the center of the room, hands in his pockets, his tone conversational. I thought it would be nice to have everyone together. You know, for the holidays. Ashley found her voice. Peter, what? Peter ignored her. He looked at Chloe. I'm sorry if this is awkward. I just thought you should be here. Chloe's eyes narrowed. She wasn't stupid. Peter could see it on her face, the pieces clicking together, the suspicion blooming. She looked at Logan, then at Ashley, standing too close together, both of them suddenly rigid. Logan's hand had been resting on the back of the couch, near Ashley's shoulder. He moved it now, too quickly. Chloe's jaw tightened. Logan, we should go. Logan nodded too fast. Yeah, let's actually, Peter said, his voice cutting through the tension. I was hoping we could all sit down for dinner first. It's ready, and I have something I'd like to share. No one moved. The guests looked uncomfortable now, sensing something wrong, but not sure what. Linda clutched her wine glass. Dan cleared his throat, but said nothing. Ashley stepped forward, her voice shaking. Peter, maybe we should. Dinner's ready, Peter repeated, louder this time. He gestured toward the dining room. Please, everyone, sit. It wasn't a request. Something in his tone made it clear. One by one, the guests filed into the dining room, taking seats around the table. Logan and Chloe sat on opposite sides, as far apart as possible. Ashley hesitated, then sat at the far end. Peter took the head of the table. Facing her, he began serving. Turkey, potatoes, green beans, rolls. The silence was thick, suffocating. Dan tried to make conversation about the weather. Linda complimented the decorations. Jennifer asked about the pie. Everyone was trying too hard, their voices too bright. Logan kept his eyes on his plate. Chloe sat stiff, barely touching her food. Ashley stared at Peter, her face a mask of controlled panic. Peter ate slowly, methodically. He let the tension build, let them sweat. Finally, halfway through the meal, Hess stood up. Excuse me for a moment, he said as he left the dining room, walked into his study, and returned with a manila envelope. He placed it on the table in front of his seat, then sat back down. Everyone stared at it. Peter picked up his fork, took another bite of turkey, chewed slowly. Then he set the fork down and slid the envelope toward the center of the table. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, Peter said. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. It means a lot. Family, friends, old acquaintances. Christmas is a time for honesty, don't you think? Ashley's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. Logan had gone pale. Peter opened the envelope. He pulled out the first photograph, a shot of Ashley and Logan outside a hotel, his hand on her lower back. He placed it on the table. Then another. Ashley getting into Logan's car. Then another. The two of them kissing in a parking lot. Chloe's chair scraped backward. She stared at the photos, her face draining of color. Peter kept going. Screenshots of text messages, printed and highlighted. Hotel receipts with Logan's name and 2 room keys. A timeline of dates, times, locations. He spread them across the table. Ashley made a choke sound, half gasp, half sob. Peter, Logan pushed his chair back, standing. This isn't. Chloe stood too, her hands shaking. She picked up one of the photos, stared at it, then looked at Logan. Her voice was quiet, deadly. How long? Logan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. How long, Logan? Chloe's voice cracked. Chloe, listen, how long? Logan's face crumpled. 6 months. Chloe's laugh was bitter, broken. She twisted the engagement ring off her finger, the diamond catching the light one last time, and dropped it onto the table. It bounced once, landed next to her untouched wine glass. We're done, she said flatly. She grabbed her purse, turned, and walked out. The front door opened and closed with a soft click. Logan stood frozen for a moment, then scrambled after her. Chloe, wait, Chloe. The door slammed. Dan and Linda sat in stunned silence. Mike and Jennifer looked at each other, then at Peter, and no one knew what to say. Peter turned to them, his voice polite. I'm sorry you had to witness that. Feel free to stay for dessert. Or, if you'd prefer to leave, I understand. Dan stood immediately. We should go. Linda nodded, already grabbing her purse. Mike and Jennifer followed suit, mumbling awkward goodbyes, avoiding eye contact. Within 2 minutes, the house was empty except for Peter and Ashley. Ashley sat at the table, her face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking. Peter stood at the head of the table, looking down at her. He felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a cold, empty clarity. He spoke quietly. You've got about 5 minutes to pack a bag. Clothes, toiletries, whatever you need for a few days. The rest of your things will be sent to your sister's place by the end of the week. I've already filed the divorce papers. They'll be served to you there. Ashley looked up, her mascara streaking down her face. Peter, please. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I've seen everything. I know everything. It was a mistake. I'll end it. I swear, 5 minutes, Peter repeated. Or I call the police and tell them you're trespassing. Ashley stared at him, disbelief and horror mixing on her face. You can't be serious. Peter pulled his phone from his pocket, held it up. For minutes. She scrambled to her feet, stumbling in her heels. She ran upstairs. Peter heard drawers slamming, the sound of frantic movement. 3 minutes later, she came back down with a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Her face was red, swollen, ruined. She tried one more time. Peter, we've been together 7 years. That has to mean something. It did, Peter said. Once. He walked her to the door, opened it. Cold air rushed in. She hesitated on the threshold, looking back at him, searching his face for something. Mercy. Maybe. She didn't find it. Goodbye, Ashley. She stepped outside. Peter closed the door quietly, locked it, and turned off the porch light. He stood there for a moment, listening to the silence of his house. Then he walked back to the dining room, cleared the table, and threw away the ruined meal. Dinner was over. Ashley drove through the dark streets of Nashville, her hands shaking on the wheel, tears blurring her vision. She didn't know where she was going at first. Just away. Away from that house, that table, those photographs spread out like evidence at a trial. But there was only one place she could go. Only one person who would understand. She pulled up outside Logan's apartment complex 20 minutes later. The building was one of those modern places with too much glass and exposed brick, the kind Logan had always liked because it made him feel successful. She sat in the car for a moment, trying to stop crying, trying to pull herself together. Then she got out and went to his door. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, harder. Logan, it's me. Open up. The door jerked open. Logan stood there, his shirt untucked, his face flushed. He'd been drinking. She could smell it on him. His eyes were red, whether from alcohol or crying. She couldn't tell. What do you want? His voice was sharp, hostile. Ashley blinked. Logan, I need to stay here. Peter kicked me out. I have nowhere to go. Logan laughed, a harsh sound. You need to stay here. That's rich. Logan, please. Do you have any idea what you just cost me? He stepped closer, his voice rising. Chloe's gone. She wouldn't answer my calls. She blocked me. I lost everything because of you. Ashley's mouth opened, closed. Because of me? You're the one who called me. Logan snapped. You're the one who said you missed me. You're the one who showed up at my place that first time. You could have said no. Yeah, well, I didn't. He turned away, walked back into the apartment, leaving the door open. Ashley took it as an invitation and followed him inside. The apartment was a mess. Empty beer bottles on the coffee table, a half-eaten pizza in an open box, clothes thrown over the back of the couch. Logan grabbed another beer from the fridge, popped it open, and drank half off it in one go. Ashley set her duffel bag down by the door. Can I stay? Just for tonight? Logan shrugged. Do whatever you want. I don't care. She sat on the edge of the couch, trying to ignore the smell of stale beer and old food. We'll figure this out. We just need to figure what out. Logan turned on her, his eyes hard. There's nothing to figure out. You ruined my life. I had a good thing with Chloe. She was perfect, stable, smart, supportive. And I threw it away for what? Some sneaking around with my ex. Ashley flinched. You said you loved me. I said a lot of things. Logan finished the beer, tossed the bottle into the trash. It missed, clattered onto the floor. He didn't pick it up. I wanted to feel something again. That's all it was. And now look at us. Ashley's eyes filled with tears again. Logan, don't say that. Why not? It's true. He walked past her, toward the bedroom. You can sleep on the couch. I'll deal with you in the morning. The bedroom door slammed. Ashley sat there in the dim light of the apartment, surrounded by his mess, and realized she'd made a terrible mistake. She stayed on the couch that night, barely sleeping. In the morning, Logan emerged from the bedroom, groggy and irritable. He barely looked at her as he made coffee, his movements jerky and annoyed. You need to go, he said without preamble. Ashley sat up, her back aching from the cheap couch. What? You heard me. I can't have you here. Logan, I have nowhere to go. Not my problem. He poured himself a mug of coffee, didn't offer her any. Call your sister. Go to a hotel. I didn't care. Just get out. Ashley stood, her voice rising. You can't just kick me out. You're the reason I'm in this mess. Logan slammed the mug down on the counter. Coffee splashed over the rim. We're both the reason, and I don't want you here reminding me of it. So that's it. You're just done. Yeah, I'm done. He walked to the door, opened it, stood waiting. Leave. Ashley grabbed her duffel bag, her hands shaking with rage and humiliation. She walked to the door, stopped in front of him. I gave up everything for you. No, Logan said quietly. You gave up everything for yourself. Don't blame me for your choices. He shoved the duffel bag in her arms and shut the door in her face. She heard the lock click. Ashley stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door, feeling the weight of her bag dragging at her shoulder. Then she turned and walked away. She called her sister from the parking lot. Emma, it's me. Can I stay with you for a while? There was a long pause on the other end. Ashley, I heard what happened. Dan and Linda called me last night. They were at your dinner. Ashley closed her eyes. Of course they had. I know. I need help. I can't have you here, Emma said, her voice firm. Not right now. My kids are asking questions, and I don't know what to tell them. And honestly, Ashley, I'm disappointed. Peter's a good man. He didn't deserve this. Emma, please, I'm sorry. I need some space to think about this. Try a hotel. The line went dead. Ashley stared at her phone, then threw it onto the passenger seat. She started the car and drove aimlessly, her mind racing. She couldn't afford a hotel for long. Her credit cards were joint accounts with Peter, and he'd probably already canceled them. She had maybe $300 in her personal checking account. That wouldn't last a week. She found a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind with flickering neon signs and stained carpets at $45 a night. She paid for 3 nights up front, carried her bag into a tiny room that smelled like cigarettes and mildew. The bed was lumpy, the TV didn't work, and the bathroom faucet dripped constantly. She sat on the edge of the bed and cried until she had nothing left. 3 days turned into a week. A week turned into 2. Ashley called the gallery where she worked, hoping they'd understand, hoping she could salvage her job. Her boss, Karen, answered on the 3rd ring. Ashley, Karen said, her tone neutral. I was expecting your call. I know I haven't been in. I've had some personal issues, but I can explain. We've already filled your position. Ashley's stomach dropped. What? We received some information about your conduct. It reflected poorly on the gallery. We felt it was best to part ways. Karen, that's not fair. My personal life has nothing to do with my job. Your final check will be mailed to your address on file. Good luck, Ashley. The line went dead. Ashley stared at the phone, her hands trembling. Peter, he'd done this. He'd made sure she lost everything. She couldn't afford the motel anymore. She packed her things, checked out, and spent the next week bouncing between friends' couches. But word had spread fast. The scandal, the dinner, the photos, everyone knew. And no one wanted to get involved. After 3 nights with her friend Kelly, Kelly's husband pulled Ashley aside. Look, Ashley, you're a nice person, but this is awkward. My wife feels uncomfortable. You should find somewhere else to stay. Ashley nodded, grabbed her bag, and left without arguing. She tried another friend. Same result. By the end of January, she was sleeping in her car, parked in a grocery store lot, using the store's bathroom to wash up. Her savings were gone. Her phone bill went unpaid, and the service cut off. She sold her jewelry, her designer handbag, anything worth money. It still wasn't enough. February came, brutal and cold. Ashley wore every layer she owned, huddled in the back seat of her car under Athen blanket. She never felt so alone. She thought about Peter constantly, about the house, the warmth, the life she'd thrown away. She replayed that dinner in her mind over and over. His calm face, Chloe's silence, the ring hitting the table, the door closing. One night, she broke down and tried to call him from payphone. The number rang twice, then went to voicemail. His voice, professional and distant. You've reached Peter Mercer. Leave a message. Ashley hung up without speaking. What would she even say? By March, Ashley had hit bottom. Her car had been repossessed after she missed 2 payments. She'd spent a week at a homeless shelter, but the noise and chaos drove her out. She walked the streets during the day, trying to stay warm, try to figure out what to do next. Her reflection in store windows shocked her. Thin, pale, her hair unwashed, her clothes wrinkled and stained. She didn't recognize herself that on a Tuesday afternoon, she found herself standing outside Peter's house. She hadn't planned it. Her feet had just carried her there, following some desperate instinct. The house looked the same. Neat lawn, tidy hedges, the mailbox she'd picked out 3 years ago. Through the window, she could see warm light glowing inside. It looked peaceful, safe. Ashley walked up the driveway, her heart hammering. She knocked on the door, waited, knocked again. The door opened. Peter stood there, dressed in jeans and a sweater, a mug of coffee in one hand. He looked good, rested. His face showed no surprise, only a faint curiosity. Ashley. His voice was neutral. She tried to speak, but her throat closed up. She swallowed hard, forced the words out. Peter, I need to talk to you. He didn't invite her in. He just stood there, waiting. I made a mistake, Ashley said, her voice shaking. A terrible mistake. I know I hurt you. I know what I did was wrong. But I have nowhere to go. No money, no job, nothing. I'm living on the streets, Peter. I need help. Please. Peter took a sip of his coffee, his expression unchanged. How long have you been homeless? About 3 weeks, Ashley said. Maybe more. I lost track. And Logan. Ashley's face crumpled. He kicked me out. The first night. He blamed me for everything. Peter nodded slowly, like he'd expected that. What about your sister? She won't talk to me. No one will. Ashley's voice broke. Peter, I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm asking anyway. I'm begging. Just let me stay here for a few days until I can figure something out. I'll sleep on the couch. I'll stay out of your way. I can't do this anymore. Peter was silent for a long moment. He looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the dirty clothes, the unwashed hair, the desperation in her eyes. Ashley saw something flicker across his face. Not pity, exactly. Something colder. Recognition, maybe. The acknowledgement of cause and effect. I helped you for 7 years, Peter said finally. His voice was calm, measured, devoid of emotion. I gave you a home. I paid the bills when your job wasn't enough. I supported your dreams, your hobbies, your friends, that I gave you everything I had. And you threw it away. I know. I'm so sorry. You made your choices, Peter continued, cutting her off. You chose Logan over me. You chose lies over honesty. You chose to destroy what we had. And now you're living with the consequences. Ashley reached out, her hand trembling. Peter, please. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll get help. I'll know. The word was final, unyielding, that Ashley's hand dropped. What? I said no. Peter stepped back, his hand on the door. You're not my responsibility anymore. You stopped being my responsibility the moment you decided to betray me. I'm not going to save you from the life you built, but I have nowhere else to go. Then I suggest you figure it out. Peter's eyes were hard, unforgiving. You're a grown woman. You made your bed. Now you lie in it. Ashley's voice rose, desperate now. Peter, you can't just leave me like this. You can't. We were married. That has to mean something. It did, Peter said quietly. Once. He closed the door. Not a slam, not a dramatic gesture. Just a quiet, firm close. Ashley heard the lock click and then silence. She stood on the porch, staring at the closed door, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She knocked again, harder. Peter, Peter, please. No answer. She pounded on the door with both fists. Peter. Through the window, she saw him walk away, back into the warmth of the house. He didn't look back. Had disappeared into another room, and the light in the hallway went off. Ashley sank to her knees on the porch, her hands pressed against the door, sobbing. She stayed there for 10 minutes, maybe more, until the cold drove her away. Then she stood, wiped her face, and walked back down the driveway. She didn't look back. That a week later, Ashley left Nashville. No one knew where she went. She didn't tell anyone, didn't say goodbye. She just disappeared, drifting out of town the same way she'd drifted through the last few months, aimless, broken, alone. The friends who'd once admired her, envied her life, stopped asking about her. The scandal faded into old gossip, replaced by newer stories, fresher drama. Ashley Mercer became a cautionary tale, whispered about at dinner parties and book clubs. Did you hear what happened to her? Peter, meanwhile, rebuilt. He threw himself into his work, took on new projects, reconnected with old friends. He sold the house in June, too many memories, and bought a smaller place closer to downtown. He started running again, something he'd let slip during the marriage. He read more, traveled a little, learned to cook properly. He wasn't happy, exactly, but he was at peace. The kind of peace that comes from cutting out the rot and letting the wound heal clean. In August, he ran into Chloe at a community fundraiser. She was volunteering at the registration table, smiling politely at donors, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Peter almost didn't recognize her at first. She looked lighter somehow, unburdened. He walked up to the table, handed her a check. "Peter Mercer," he said. Chloe looked up, her eyes widening in recognition. "Peter, hi." They stared at each other for a moment, the weight of that Christmas dinner hanging between them. Then Chloe smiled, a small, genuine smile. "How are you?" "Better," Peter said honestly. "You, getting there." She took his check, processed it, then hesitated. "I never thanked you for what you did. It was brutal, but I needed to know." Peter nodded. "I figured you did. Still, thank you." They talked for a few minutes, exchanging updates in the careful way people do when they've shared a traumatic experience but don't know each other well. Chloe had moved to a new apartment, started therapy, taken up painting. Logan had tried to reach out a few times, but she'd blocked him everywhere. She was done. "Good," Peter said. "You deserve better." "So do you?" Chloe looked at him with something close to understanding. "We both do." They parted ways after that. No promises made, no sparks ignited. Just two people who'd survived betrayal and refused to let it destroy them. Peter walked away feeling something he hadn't felt in months. A quiet, simple gratitude for his own resilience. By December, Peter was ready to host another Christmas dinner. Not a big one, just a few close friends, people he trusted. He cooked a smaller turkey, made simpler sides, kept the wine flowing and the conversation light. No secrets, no lies. Just honest company and good food. Near the end of the evening, one of his friends, Tom, leaned back in his chair and asked, "You ever think about forgiving her?" The table went quiet. Everyone looked at Peter. He set down his fork, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and thought about the question. He thought about Ashley on his porch, broken and desperate. He thought about the 7 years they'd spent together, the good and the bad. He thought about the moment he'd closed the door on her. Then he shook his head. "No." Tom raised an eyebrow. "No, forgiveness isn't owed," Peter said calmly. "It's earned, and she stopped earning mine a long time ago. I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm, but I don't forgive her either. Some things you don't come back from." Tom nodded slowly, accepting that. Fair enough. The conversation moved on. Peter poured more wine, told a joke that made everyone laugh. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent, blanketing the street in white. Inside, the house was warm, filled with the sound of Feezy laughter and the clatter of dishes. Peter looked around the table at these people, good people, honest people, and felt something settle in his chest. Peace. Real peace. The kind that comes only after walking through fire and refusing to burn. He raised his glass. To moving forward. His friends raised theirs in return. To moving forward. They drank. The fire crackled. The snow fell. And Peter Mercer, for the first time in a long time, felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.